Hello, everybody. The poet that I got was Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Let's get started. So, I'm going to take you through my thought process while I was starting this. I sat down to go ahead and get started, and then I thought to myself, do I really want to work on this? And I said no. So, I went and watched some TV, but luckily, this happened to pop up on the TV. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the news for tonight. Well, you see, this background was not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be a green screen, but not everything goes to plan when you're trying to make a green screen. So we're gonna have to work with what we have. So for today's topic, we will actually not be talking about coronavirus. I know, shocking. I mean, it hasn't been like a month since we talked about anything else. We will actually be focusing on Samuel Taylor Coleridge, an English romantic poet. He's a late 18th century and early 19th century poet. You might be wondering why we are focusing on this random person from long ago that most people will forget about in a few days. I thought the same thing when I read the script this morning. I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, we should probably get started. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was born on the 21st of October, 1772. From an early age, Coleridge had a fascination with literature and poetry. Books such as The Arabian Nights entertained and enriched his young mind with unique ideas and intellect for someone his age. This helped him stand out from his peers, and as he described it, he never thought like a child and he didn't have the language of a child. His childhood was not happiest though, as his father died when he was 9 years old, going on to greatly affect him. From 1791 to 1794, Coleridge attended Jesus College in Cambridge. Here we see the health problems that would plague him for the rest of his life start to pop up. He also gained a reputation as an enthusiastic and spellbinding talker. In the years that followed, Coleridge made several important acquaintances. In 1794, he met poet Robert Southey. Coleridge and Southey became close friends and quickly began to collaborate on works. In 1795, Coleridge met William Wordsworth, which greatly influenced his decision to scrap his idea of following his father and becoming a clergyman and instead focus on becoming a poet. In 1794, before that, he ended up marrying his wife, Sarah Frigger, even though he loved another woman. The marriage was not destined to be a happy one. Nevertheless, Coleridge was on the threshold of several productive years and creative years in which he wrote many of the poems he is most known for. In 1798, along with his now close collaborator, William Wordsworth, he published his most famous work, The Lyrical Ballads, a joint poetry volume. In this was the most famous of his poetry, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The use of exotic images and supernatural themes helped paint a vivid image in the reader's mind. The two are credited with starting the English Romantic movement. Soon after this, he and Wordsworth traveled to Germany. He went to Germany to acquire the language and learn what German theology and metaphysics he might find worthy to study. Following this, his health continued to deteriorate and he became increasingly addicted to opium, which he has struggled with for a long time at this point. His oversensitivity and unfortunate events such as his father's early death and his bad marriage could have also contributed to his addiction. It is thought he wrote many of his most famous works while under the influence of opium. Coleridge claimed that opium inspired many of the works he is most celebrated for. Another one of his most famous poems, Kubla Khan, published in 1816, was a result of a dream Coleridge had while under the influence of opium. In his later years, he began to focus and became more known for his literary criticisms and his mind for philosophy. In late 1811, Coleridge roused himself to sufficiently give a series of lectures on William Shakespeare and William Milton, which established his reputation for literary criticism. Coleridge published Biographia Litera in 1817, which contained accounts of his literary life and critical essays of philosophy and literary subject. It presents Coleridge's theories of the creative imagination and its death to other writers, notably German philosophers. Many of his later years, he was plagued with the inability to not be able to focus projects and finish on them. He cannot settle down on one important work. Although he had many projects in mind, he was unable to persevere and finish one. The greater task he set for himself, the more paralyzed he became, and he constantly lamented his inability to concentrate on one project at a time. Coleridge died on July 25, 1844, stricken by constant poor health and drug addiction. His body wore out at the age of 61. His significance will not soon be forgotten. His poems directly influenced all the major poets of that time. Coleridge's philosophical thought is central in the English Romantic movement. His literary criticisms and theories have remained relevant since his death. And although the greatness as a poet rests only on a handful of poems, his honored place at the center of English literature is unlikely to be challenged. So that will conclude our newscast for tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night. So yeah, I hope you guys don't mind me stealing for this 100% professional broadcast as my biography portion. Anyways, we should probably move on to the poem analyst. And the poem that I've chosen is Work Without Hope, which was composed in 1825. So here's the poem if you want to pause the video and read it real quick. So I'll just point out a few things I saw initially before I go into a deeper dive on the main meaning. It starts off with showing nature in motion, and it contrasts this with the speaker being the sole busy thing in the forest, while nature is all doing their purpose. And the contrast of the happiness on the face of winter as things move to the spring contrasts the sadness that the speaker moves into in this moment as he realizes his lack of purpose. And then we move into the second stanza, and it starts off again showing with nature in motion, and it also talks about how even though he has walked around the forest for a while and knows the forest really well, the flowers don't bloom for him. They bloom because that is their purpose in the cycle of nature. And because of this, he is only aimlessly walking around the forest as an observer. And then the couplet at the end, like any sonnet, shows the main theme of the poem. And here's the poem again as I go into some of the deeper meanings. As I kind of touched on earlier, the main theme of the poem is about how you are destined to walk around life aimlessly if you don't really set a goal for yourself or set a purpose for yourself. As this can be seen through the contrast of nature, which has its own purpose and objective, but he sits there walking around aimlessly and feels drowsy and sorrowful because of it. This also plays into how Coleridge idolizes nature because nature sets the perfect example of how one should live their life. And then there's also parallels to be made between man and nature, because just as how nature cannot function without a purpose, so man cannot properly function without a purpose. And it also plays into Coleridge's own disappointment in his life with how he was never really able to, at least in his later years, he really struggled to focus on one project at a time and didn't really wasn't able to really focus on purpose for projects and poems, stuff like that. So, and he always was ashamed of that. So that's the end of my presentation, and thank you guys.